Hamilton Souther is one of the world's leading experts on visionary plant medicines and psychedelic ceremonies. He's spent almost 25 years in the Amazon and has guided over 10,000 people through ayahuasca ceremonies as well as other types of visionary plants. I had the great honor of first connecting with Hamilton about 3 years ago now. And throughout that time, we've become close friends. He's been a teacher of mine, and I really consider him a brother. Hamilton and I have done 5 or 6 episodes together of the Lost and Found podcast and was one of the early guests. And I'm delighted for him to be returning again. And in this episode, we're actually diving into a course and facilitation program that Hamilton now offers for people that feel called to the plant medicine path, both in their own individual experience, but also in facilitating for other people. You may have noticed that psychedelics and plant medicine ceremonies have become more and more popular over the recent years. And as someone that really is at the forefront of the plant medicine ceremony movement and has been deeply in for almost a quarter of a century, Hamilton really is perfectly placed to deliver a course on best practices on if people are going to be doing this, how to do it in the best possible way to facilitate the best possible experience in a safe way that really affords the wonder and the beauty that plants can provide. So I hope you enjoyed this episode with Hamilton and I as we dive into his experience in the world of psychedelics, of plant ceremonies, of his journey, and this course that is being put together. Now, if you are interested in learning more about it, there is a link in the description for you to click to find out all about the facilitation program that Maestro Hamilton has put together. And if you feel called to be guided and to be taught by one of the world's leading experts in this space, then go ahead and click the link and find out more. All right, that is it from me. Let's go ahead and jump into this episode. Before we hit record, we were just talking about this plant medicine space, some of the journey that you've been through. I wasn't quite aware of just how much that journey has included, and we find ourselves in a time now where there is so much more awareness. Just the other day, I was in the sauna at the gym that I go to, which is like country club type vibe. A couple $100 a month for a membership, and if there are 7 or 8 people in the sauna and I mention ayahuasca, half of them are aware of it. It's kind of wild, when I first became aware of ayahuasca 15 years ago, that certainly wasn't the case. And you've played, I dare say, a big role in that. So I guess I just want to open up the conversation just with just why now this is important, but also maybe just to share some of your journey for anyone who hasn't listened to any of our previous conversations, just to get a little bit of insight, just to lead us to where we are today and the importance of this next phase.
Well, my plant medicine journey and really life journey starts in California before heading to Peru in 2001. And I had a spiritual awakening, just simple as that. It was a spontaneous experience. And I started to go through what now is a very well-charted understanding of, just awakening. You start to see things a little differently and you feel like there's a veil of awareness and you're starting to see through it a little bit. And that started to happen. And through those processes, I started meditating and doing some, journey work and all pre-plant medicine. But it was very clear that I was supposed to go to Peru. I felt this really clear direction being offered and given. And so in 2001, I went to Peru to seek more understanding of the experiences I was having and potentially an apprenticeship, if it was even possible. It just word kept coming up, apprenticeship. And so I headed to Peru, and I found through that journey through the beautiful country, ultimately ended in the Amazon in my first ayahuasca ceremony. And that was a life-changing moment. It was, in October of 2001. And it was a incredibly transformational first foray into this world of plant medicine. And like you said, it was, you know, not as widely known as it is now, or not known at, hardly at all, just very small circles under even knew of it. And it's been an incredible journey over the last 23 years to continue working with ayahuasca and the plants, and just understand how important they are and how impactful they are. Now, not just to the cultures that utilize them down in South America, but also to the incredible global expansion of plant medicine. Its, acceptance in the world, its rightful position. And I think at a time of real importance, considering the hyper digitalization and AI movements going on, and the escalation of conflicts over currency and economics on the larger playing field, I think, along with a growing mental health crisis, really puts these plants as a nexus point to tremendous social, personal, and cultural change. And I'm glad that I've gotten to be an advocate and pioneer for the last decades about their importance.
For people that aren't aware of ayahuasca, could you just speak slightly more to that? Although I think a lot of people that will be listening to this are, but just in case.
Ayahuasca is a tea. It's a mixture of two principal ingredients that are Amazonian plants. The first one is the vine of ayahuasca, or Banisteriopsis caapi, and it's just a principal ingredient. You chop it up, you harvest it, and then boil it, and you mix it with the leaves of chacruna, which is Psychotria vigris, and the combination forms ayahuasca. There are other cultures that add more plants to it, but that's the core basis of this plant medicine. And you cook it, depending on the culture, for hours to days. It's a very, beautiful ritual around its preparation, depending on the lineage and culture that you're part of. And what you ultimately get as a final product is this very potent visionary plant medicine that is now known scientifically to have incredible benefits for your brain in terms of rebalancing serotonin, uh, awakening the ends of the neurons so that your own neurotransmitters are better received. So you have this balancing effect of serotonin, balancing effect of and efficacy of your own neurotransmitters. And then there's this component to the experience that is psychological, where people go on these deep emotional and personal journeys. And the final piece, which is visionary or spiritual, mystical, where people feel like they connect with something that is much greater than themselves, vastly greater. And within it, there is a almost unlimited amount of treasure to be discovered, of experiences that are as real as the experience someone's having right now, but of this greater mystical context that, for me, I think is just so important for somebody to have in their life, because it helps support the understandings of the bigger picture that we're all part of, and why every person has deep purpose, and why we're alive.
We now find ourselves at a time where, like I said, so many people are aware of visionary plant medicines, not just ayahuasca, but psilocybin. There's a tremendous amount of research being done now with psilocybin mushrooms and other visionary plants. And it seems like, and we've spoken about this before, this psychedelic renaissance that's taking place, that's also seems to coincide with a whole bunch of other things that are taking place globally. People identifying as spiritual but not religious is the fastest growing demographic. That being said, there also seems to be some reclamation and resurgence of religion as well. And I think potentially in more of a clarified way, where it's, someone can actually have their own religious experience whilst also being religious. Whereas I think for many years, religion's almost prevented religious experience.
Mm.
Where do you think we find ourselves now in this very unique moment of history, and how plants can play a role in that?
First, I just think that the modern mind is a very new technology. So this tool that we all have, that is our mind, that we use to navigate everything from how we make a cup of coffee to how we drive a car to how we think, is actually something that has only come into existence in the last hundreds of years, not even thousands of years. And it has to do with advancements in our linguistics and science and mathematics and standard education and literacy around the world, etc. So, it's a strange phenomena in our history that we've had this period of time where spirituality has kind of been pushed to a side, religion's been pushed to a side, and there's been such a focus on the mind and the development of the mind. And fundamentally, spirituality has been something that's been deeply important to humanity since its origins. And so I think what happens evolutionarily is that this period of time of the mind naturally comes to a point where people start asking with that mind much bigger questions that can't be answered by the mind. Like, what's our origin? What's before Big Bang? What's the rest of the universe? Is this a multiverse or a single universe? Where does creation fit into all of this? What's beyond the event horizon that we see? Why can't we time travel? What is the future of our technologies? Who are we? Where did we really come from? Knowing that certain mythological and religious stories just don't hold water anymore to what we understand about life as we start to apply our scientific awareness and understanding. But it doesn't take away these much deeper questions that we have. And even as kids, as parents, the kids ask these questions to the parents. They want to know the context for this experience. And what I find about the plants that are so amazing is that people now in the millions who have the experience with the plants gain greater context and awareness in a very short period of time. Meaning that they can go into a ceremony with psilocybin or ayahuasca or San Pedro and come out of that single ceremony with advancements in their own personal experience and understanding. And everybody who does that seems to come out with a spiritual component or context in association with that bigger picture. So I've never heard somebody just come out of it without also this greater spiritual awareness that seems to be awakened, that I think is innate and inherent to us. And so I think the plants have their place now as helping to facilitate this greater awareness into this field of questions that for us is very hard to answer. That's just a one step beyond our normal state of mind. And when we do, people seem to experience not only the beauty of awakening, but also a much deeper sense of mental health, more coherence with their heart, and an internal sense of well-being, and the unveiling of direction and purpose in their life. So if those are the side effects, I think the plants are just a phenomenal teacher and supporter for somebody in today's day and age to ask those questions and start to better understand who and what we are.
Something just dawned on me that, what we call the Western Enlightenment or the European Enlightenment around, the 1500s, really modernity. That was when, a lot of people might not realize, but God as a being wasn't really an idea until the late Middle Ages that then really became solidified in modernity. And it was really modernity that created this split. And it's ironic because it's called the European Enlightenment, where, kind of there's the Cartesian model of science, Descartes, the godfather of modern philosophy, but there's really this split that took place. And there's this, it just dawned on me for whatever reason, how ironic it is that the European Enlightenment was about this split between mind and body, where God became a being that is separate from. Really, the European Enlightenment was almost about this split, very much the left hemisphere of the brain that wants to create separation. And actually, just as you were saying that, I just became acutely aware of how plants almost seem a remedy for the European Enlightenment and the notion of creating split and separation of mind, of body, of spirit, of God, and actually offers an experience where all of those things come back together to realize that there really is no split.
I love that. And, psilocybin is known for helping to create left and right hemisphere communication and syncing in the brain. And so we have this very dominant, left hemisphere, very ordered, mathematical, Sudoku, boxes and numbers kind of way of thinking, spreadsheet way of thinking. And then we have this great imagination and awareness. And psilocybin has been proven now to show this deep awareness and syncing. Ayahuasca is being proven to show that in the nanotubules of the brain, like going into the subatomic communication that's taking place in the brain. This is like subneural level, that it's awakening omnidirectional communication in the, so these new ways of the brain waking up. And when that happens, I agree with you that the natural experience is of holism. It's of oneness. It's not mind, body, and spirit. It's mind, body, spirit is one thing, the universe as one whole thing, and we having our rightful place and purpose within it. And I understand that from the time of, European Enlightenment, there was a divide ideologically between scientists that were being persecuted by the Catholic Church because their discoveries were not in alignment with the teachings of the Church. And so when you go into a state of persecution and isolation, it's natural that you also have some vehemence and antagonism there. And so it helped create the nature of that divide. And I wonder sometimes in history, well, what would have happened if the Catholic Church would have embraced at that point the science and said, thank you for updating our understandings, and brought the science into the church itself to update the mythology and update the awarenesses. Because ultimately, I feel like science has been studying the great mystery, not disproving God, but just studying something that is so mysterious, which just is our environment, our beautiful planet Earth, our place in the solar system, what it is to be part of a galaxy, how there's this fundamental nature to matter that is miraculous in its own right. Like, where did all the matter come from quarks to subatomic particles to atoms to molecules to Earth creating organic and biological life and complex cellular systems? All of that seems so miraculous to me. I just can't normalize it. And so I've wondered what would happen if the religions had embraced that and said, you're not disproving anything, guys. You're proving, our understandings. Just we have to update them. I wonder what world we would live in. But I feel like we've been, even as scientists, just exploring the great mystery. And I think one of the greatest mysteries of all is just who we are, and why even with our great science, we still don't fully understand how the body works and how we're still making discoveries.
This podcast is brought to you by Nugenics. Nugenics is a company that is really concerned about asking better questions. What does it mean to be human? And ultimately, their vision is to reimagine biology. What if age didn't mean a resignation to the decay of the body, but where our best years physically are still to come? At its core, that is what Nugenics is about, and they provide cutting-edge research-grade peptides like BPC157, TB500, GHKCU, which is copper peptide, in serum forms, patches, and different types of products that really support allowing the body to be the best possible expression it can. If you want to learn more about the cutting edge research of what it means to be human and this huge peptide movement that is taking place from somewhere that offers high quality, third party tested products, then check out nugenics.com. And as a listener of the show, if you use the code Sabri, you'll get 10% off every order that you place with them. So that's nugenics.com, NUGENYX.com. That's nugenics.com. Reimagining biology. Yeah, and just as you say that, one of the things with Cartesian science, the Cartesian model, because pre-Cartesian science, it was Aristotelian science, which had much more of a contact epistemology, knowing through contact. And I think the Cartesian model and what most people understand as science for the last few hundred years is very much propositional. And you said something moments ago about there are things that the mind can't comprehend, and there's the propositional aspects that just the mind can't grasp, but there's a different type of knowing through participating, which brings us back to the participatory element of plants and, you know, visionary states, and not just what we see, but what we experience in those moments that proposition and words alone simply can't convey. It's just like the difference between, you know, the word orgasm and having an orgasm, not the same thing.
They're not the same thing. And the word love and experiencing love is not the same either. What I loved when I got to the Amazon, I had just graduated from the university. So I had been from, preschool through university, continuous, unbroken studies. I was the year that after the year I had graduated from university in 2000, now in 2001, and I head to the Amazon. And I meet the plants, and I meet a group of people that have never been to school, they've never been to a classroom, and they have only learned experientially. So they've never sat in front of a whiteboard. They've never just been presented information to memorize and regurgitate. And they sit down together and they drink the plants and they have these deep experiences and they learn to pass knowledge on through the experience. And I realized there was a whole new form of learning. It was experiential learning. It was the learning from being willing to go into the unknown and have experiences that I had never had before and be fundamentally changed in a positive way from those, from healing experiences to deep awakenings, awarenesses, downloads, and opening up to what they call sabiduria, or knowledge or wisdom, that seems to be innate within us and activated by the plant medicine experience. And for me, it was just finding a passion. It was the best thing I had ever experienced, that you could do a day and go into a ceremony at night and come out with more knowledge, awareness, and understanding about myself and about my environment and my life than I could have ever imagined going into it. And I realized that's why our traditions called these plants great teachers. They had this reverence for them as teacher plants, and that they were a cornerstone not only of our own continuous discovery of information and awareness, but that they had been some of our oldest medicines and oldest teachers, and that there was now historic and archaeological evidence for people using these plants for thousands of years. And it felt incredible to be part of these lineages of our ancestry that we're continuing to discover in this experiential way.
So flash forwards 24 years, there is so much more awareness now. So many people that have had experiences, so many people that are very curious about experiences, and also many people that are having experiences that might not be in best practice. And I think this now opens up the conversation nicely with what you're doing with creating more of a formalized, if that's the right word, approach to participate with plants in a way that is sacred, that is not drug culture. So it seems like a great time for us to get into that a little bit.
When I went through training in the Amazon, I realized that that kind of training would be very difficult for people from other cultures, especially in Western lives, to just get to have the experience. It just takes so much time. And as years progressed, we've been holding retreats for people. We've now sat with over 10,000 people, and I've gotten to host thousands of ceremonies, which I consider to be a great honor in my life. I've always been looking for a way to be able to support others to have really profound, safe, ethical experiences in plant medicine. At the same time as we watch this happen, we also watch the psychedelic renaissance happen, where many, many thousands of untrained people just started serving these medicines and holding ceremonies for others, which for us was outside of the boundaries of ethics and integrity. Our lineages were protected, and people would go through, experiences to learn how to wield these plants safely and with tremendous efficacy. And so I was always looking for a way that we could create education-based programs to empower others to have access to the plants, use them with the same kind of safety protocols, awareness, and understanding that we have, and be able to do it from anywhere in the world, be able to do it from their home, learn to sit for themselves, friends and family, and ultimately, if they wanted to, professionally. So over the years, I've been looking for the best ways to do that, and I, finally synthesized a training program through our academy that would allow people to do this in community, learn from the comforts of their home, be able to bring all of the theoretical education through video that could be self-paced, and then learn the ability to sit with the plant medicines, have community to support those experiences, and really learn how to wield these plants with the greatest capacity in a formal and simplified way that would always maintain safety and integrity, and most importantly, empower people once again to have the power of their own mental health and experiential learning in their hands.
How long ago was it when you first ran the first training for the Blue Morpho Academy for this?
Yeah, the first training was about 2 years ago, and we had about 100 people in the first cohort.
Yeah, and I was one of them.
Indeed.
Yeah, and I remember saying at the time just how incredible it was. It really was amazing, especially the live calls when people, just the questions and just the depth for all the range of questions that there were, the depth that you went into with it. And I remember saying at the time, like, it really felt cutting edge. And I learned a tremendous amount from it. And, since then have facilitated psilocybin, just psilocybin ceremonies, and, SATs. And of course, I already have a lot of experience with coaching and
Mm.
being able to drop in deeply with someone and to really, feel into the space. But it's been an incredible addition to what I offer, and for me, it's often with people that I already have a deep relationship with in coaching. So it creates there's already deep trust that is going in there. But I have utilized, deeply the lessons that I learned through the course. And actually, maybe I'll share this because I received this message this morning from a client of mine. I always feel funny saying the word client because it always feels like so much more. It feels like
Mm.
the relationship feels so much more than that. But she actually came from Switzerland for 3 days. Sabri, I knew I needed the 3-day immersion with you. I just had no idea how much I actually needed it. I've been so far in my head these past few months, even years, I almost completely lost my connection to myself, my body, and my inner knowing. I kept ignoring what I knew was right for me and let myself get pulled into the stories of the minds and the stories of others. You have been so patient with me over the last years, and your invitation for the weekend came at exactly the right moment. If I was still stuck in my head, I would probably regret not having done this sooner, but it came exactly at the time it needed to. You knew exactly what I needed, where to start, where to lead, and what to say. You were frank and direct when it mattered, but also beautifully patient and guiding. And then the ceremony. Wow. I did not know what to expect, and I didn't think about it much beforehand. But what I received was far beyond anything I could ever have imagined. I can't even remember the last time I felt that much clarity. You guided me through it so intuitively and so precisely. I have never felt so connected. Everything simply fell into place. I had no idea that so much peace, joy, and love could be available. And now that it is, I'm not willing to compromise on it anymore. I can only reaffirm what I've said before. I'm endlessly grateful for you, for your groundedness, your calm presence, and the way you hold me, guide me, and remind me. I've never felt so open and raw in my vulnerability after what followed the ceremony. and yet so supported at the same time. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That says it all to me. That's why I wanted to share these kinds of education and courses with people and open up this ability for them to have that in their own hands, to have that ability to drop in and have those kinds of experiences and guide and lead others. And I just think to myself, you're going through a week, maybe 2 weeks, and it just gets hard. And sometimes it gets dark. Sometimes it's painful. Sometimes things are coming up from the past and we get stuck in a rut and we don't know how to get out of it. I want people to know how to use these plants to just quietly drop in and have a transformational experience that helps them transcend that. And we know that it is a consistent, safe, repeatable type of experience with the right dose. And it's moving for me to hear that you've taken something from the course and shared it with others, and it gets that kind of result. And so it's incredible.
It's beautiful to share this because this is someone who I've worked with in a coaching capacity for the last 2 years, and we have a deep relationship. She had never experienced any type of visionary plants or, state altering substances in that way. And for people, listening, that as we get more into this course, that might be considering this, just from my perspective as someone that does coach, that has clients online, but to be able to offer this aspect in person that facilitated that experience, where I wouldn't have done this if I hadn't have gone through the training with you, because I want to, honor what the plants have been in my own life in a sacred manner, in a reverential way. But by going through that, and combining with my own experience already with coaching, and feeling like I can really connect with people that I'm with, but to combine those together and to facilitate that type of experience for someone, which is truly life changing, is so beautiful. And I feel so honored and grateful. So also, just to reflect back to you, a deep thank you, because that is the ripple that is going on. And yeah.
We live in a really chaotic time. Life has been ever more complicated and more intense with the digital age. We're more in our minds. We're bombarded all the time. And we as people, are always in need of something that is more grounding for us and supportive for us. And I think at this time more than ever in history, especially in and around our own mental health and well-being, to be empowered and to be strengthened is key. We know that AI is coming more and more into our lives. It's already been here for 20 years. People just didn't talk about it very much. It was in every keyboard on every phone. It was behind every social media algorithm. It just wasn't talked about a lot, but now it's a consumer-facing product. And we know we're just going to experience more digitization. And I think that becomes an opportunity for us to know ourselves more deeply within ourselves. We have the part of us that's mind, and then we have the part of us that feels, that loves, that cares, that's part of spirit. And I think that this next age we go into, like we were talking about how, science split away from spirituality, ultimately becomes spiritual plus science. And we have these tools now. I didn't want the tools to only be locked away in secret lineages like I was part of, but I wanted the tools to be something that we could help use to just nudge a little bit into the world and help shift something for the positive. And I thought the best way to do that was for individuals to know how to do this with others in a safe way, that they would feel comfortable knowing how to be able to hold intention, set up a space to be a safe space, understand how to create spiritual protection so that people could get comfortable and centered, know how to handle any kind of situation that could come up in the ceremony, proper dose and use of the different plants, know why to use something like psilocybin instead of San Pedro or cannabis or ayahuasca, and learn to be able to hold and share space with others. And I wanted this ripple effect that we could create to be something that we could feel proud of, knowing that we were part of just a continued evolution of improvement for people in the world, and that we knew that we were doing our part.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the downsides of the growing awareness without the best practices?
It's a great question, because in the lineages, the dangers are really well known and they're mapped. And the problem with Western drug cultures is that they take a kind of nonchalance to working with these plants. And so you hear about it all the time at, festivals and at raves where there's, like the bad trip tent where people are going in and in the wrong set, wrong setting, wrong vibe for them. Many others are feeling really positive about their experiences, but for them that day, it's too much, or it's been the wrong dose, or there isn't the right quality of medicines, etc. And so, you know, at the wrong time in the wrong hands, people can experience tremendous fear. And, in the worst cases, if someone isn't well screened for the experience, they can even experience psychosis. And so the idea of understanding and going through a kind of preparatory course, getting the information, understandings, practicing, gaining skills in it, is so that we can ensure that we don't head in those directions. As I say, it's very well mapped. And the Western cultures take, like I say, a kind of nonchalance associated with it, like, oh, well, that's just a bad trip. But really the understandings is that if you set up the set for it, the mindset, the setting for the space, the preparation for going into it, and learn the skills to reorient somebody if they go into a kind of negative thread, how to bring them back into the experience, how to embody the experience and shift into states of positivity. Those potential negatives can be redirected. I think the other thing that I'm concerned about, that I would like to voice, is that these are very suggestible states that people go into. And right now, there's a tremendous movement of charlatans that are utilizing the plants for their own purposes. Some of them just personal enrichment, and in other cases, quite nefarious. And I just want to put the warning out there that I think one of the important things in a course like we're offering is that you learn how to protect yourself. So people go to, circles where they're taking plant medicines and psychedelics together, and they're presuming that the leader has their best interest in heart and that they're providing protection and safety. And I want everyone to know how to provide their own protection and safety. I don't want people to have to rely on the leader in case something happens to the leader. And I've even thought, to the position, well, what happens if you're in a ceremony with the leader and the leader just has an emergency themselves? What if the emergency is they got up from their chair and they just fall over and now they're knocked unconscious? What if it's that they, for some reason have an adverse effect or get really sick in that moment, or, something else happens? Who's going to then take over that ceremony? Who's going to be able to sit and know what to do? So I want people to be empowered to know what to do in case something happened, even with a leader of a ceremony, and be able to offer that support and assistance to others. And so I know that there are people in the plant medicine culture who are going to various shamans, going to various ceremonial leaders, going to various festivals and stuff like that. And I want them to know how to always be there for themselves and others, and know that they're able to create safety for everyone that's with them, and that people can sit in that level of integrity and personal empowerment.
For people to understand your level of experience with plants and ceremonies, because obviously you mentioned ayahuasca, October 2001, but just for them to have a little more context, how many times would you say you have taken part in one ayahuasca, and then 2 other visionary plants?
That's a good question. Our training's in depth. So the simple answer is I've held close to 2,000 ayahuasca ceremonies, and I have held another 1,500 to 2,000 of other kinds of visionary plant medicine ceremonies. So somewhere between 3,500 and 4,000 ceremonies.
Yeah. And again, if people aren't too familiar with the terminology, when you say you hold the ceremony, does that mean you're just observing other people that are taking the plant medicines, or are you taking the plant medicines with them?
Well, every time we participate in ceremony, we also consume the plant medicines. We go into the visionary states and learn how to guide people in those. It's a traditional role that the ceremonial leader, that in our lineage is called a medico vegetalista, or doctor of the plants, actually consumes the plant medicine, goes into vision with the participants and guides them through that. You learn how to use percussion, chant, song, and ikaro to be able to do it. There's very little spoken word. Spoken word is used only when necessary because people are in an altered state. And so it's not so typically conversational. And you use sound and percussion to be able to support the direction, as well as learning how to guide in the visions. And it's a beautiful art. I like to think of it as an art, very much like people learn martial arts. It's not martial sciences, it's martial arts. It's this very creative space where there's a lot of intuition and awareness, and we support people to develop their own arts. So we provide a framework that allows for safety and integrity for all of our practitioners to be supported and know exactly how to be able to host and hold ceremony, and then this incredible space to develop your own creativity and your own style and your own way of leading and guiding, both for yourself and for others.
Great. Yeah, I just thought it's worth people understanding. I knew the answer to the question, but so that means you've have around close to 4,000 psychedelic journeys, experiences, and hosting ceremonies. So what we're talking about now with creating this course for best practices and approaches, it's not that you've had, it's not that you've been to the disco once or twice. You've you've had a good amount of experience there.
I have. It's been a unique life. I'm grateful for it. When we train, we drink ayahuasca anywhere from 120 to 200 times a year. And so to try to put it into perspective, those are full ceremonies. It's not like a 5 or 10 minute experience. They're anywhere from 4 to 12 hour experiences. And you spend a lot of time training in the visionary states.
Mm.
It's something that's not understood really in the Western psychedelic and drug cultures, that there are these roles of people in tribal societies that spend a lot of time learning to sit with and be with the medicines and then be able to guide people through those states. In our lineage, you had to go through extensive training, including continuous rites of passage and what they called tests of virtue, to ultimately graduate. And when I did, I was given the title Maestro in our lineage. I was the first non-blood relative to receive that honor in our lineage. And then they told me afterwards, now you're going to enter a maturation phase. So you feel like, wow, I made it. And then they're like, oh, there's this phase. And I say, well, how long does that take? And they say, as long as it takes. And so I found out that I was going to be training for many years. So I trained for about 14 years consistently. And then I started to back off a little bit and, just continue to practice medicine. But my formal training lasted for 14 years, and I consider myself a lifelong student. And once you really learn to love and work with the plants, they have their natural place in your life.
Mm. What plants are covered in the course for the training, and maybe we can start to talk about what's included a little bit more, what's in there, what it looks like.
Well, we cover 4 different plant medicines: psilocybin, San Pedro, also known as wachuma, cannabis, and ayahuasca. Each one has a very special purpose to supporting your health and well-being. So psilocybin's great at creating hemispheric communication. It's a gentle medicine to learn with. Cannabis in small doses is even a more gentle medicine. It helps open creativity. And at large doses, it's really potent and can produce an 8 to 10 hour ceremony where you have to, really learn to sit and practice. So it goes from incredibly gentle all the way to very, very intense. And wachuma, San Pedro, is a mescaline-based cactus that has a very long, very melodic experience, these long waves, and it helps connect you deeply with earth, your earth-based connections and awarenesses. People can say that they feel like the plants are communicating with them, the flowers, the birds, the nature, the awareness, this deep connection to body and being alive. And then, of course, ayahuasca is, as we said, is great for the neurotransmitters of the brain and really turning your awareness back on and supporting mental health. And there are ways to work with it from very small doses that are almost sub-perceptible all the way to the full, 8 to 12 hour visionary experience that does take a significant amount of training to learn how to wield. And to go through the course and learn with these plant medicines, we have 8 weeks of theoretical information that's presented in videos. They're all 5 to 15-minute videos that you can go through. And you learn how to create a safe space, how to know what kind of medicine to work with for yourself or for others, the right proper dose to use depending on the kind of situation you find yourself in. You learn how to sit and be in the medicine, starting with small doses and working your way up to larger doses with yourself. And then you learn about how to set up the space, what kind of music to use, create, or play, how to be able to do that, and how to finally communicate with the plant so that you can start to modulate and moderate your experience from within. It goes through the theory, through the videos, and then there's lectures that I've given in association with that, also including Q&A. So we go through online all of the information that you need to be able to start to implement. And then we have a path for you to start doing your own plant medicine sits. And you can be accompanied by other students, either in person or remotely. And that way you start to get the experience you need. And so the 8 weeks of the course material itself are ultimately practiced for a number of months. Some people practice for 2-3 months, and then they feel they're ready to present to us what they've learned. And other people take a little bit longer. Some people even up to a year. And so the coursework itself you go through, and then you actually practice it and you turn it into experiential learning. And we support you through each step of the way.
And I think that support piece is really important, and also to be able to ask the questions to get more feedback, and even with helping people integrate and knowing all these aspects, because I think there are a lot of people, and without wanting to shift gears too much, with the spiritual space, for lack of a better term, I think there are lots of people that are very well intended, yet, I might have the very best intentions for my daughter. It doesn't mean I'll be the best person to perform surgery on her if she needed it. And I think there are some people that are very well intended that are wanting to be involved through those good intentions in facilitating or helping people in certain ways, but just truly don't have the best practices or helping people integrate or to ground or to actually afford someone more existential resilience, and where they are cultivating more virtues and actually being able to show up and face the world in a way that affords more peace and joy and resilience, which I think is what the plants can absolutely offer. But I think also the flip side of that, if not done, with those best practices, I think it can create the opposite effect where people are entering these, really vulnerable states and then entering the world in a more vulnerable way, not knowing how to integrate what their experience was. And I think that's another thing here that it can really help people, again, that are very well intended to really guide people in the best possible way.
Yeah, one of the things I'm most proud of about Blue Morpho over the years is the community that's developed. There's still a lot of, lack of awareness in the public about plant medicines, but not in our community. And so in our community, everybody is open about the nature of their experiences, how they're learning, integrating, working with them, and supporting each other. And as a commitment to that community and the plant medicines, I hold free integration for everybody in our community. We have bi-monthly calls for integration and also mentorship for everybody in our plant medicine courses. So we have integration calls and included mentorship calls. And the goal of those is to provide the opportunity for Q&A, for people to share with each other the experiences they're having, learn from each other, and to be able to, bounce the questions that they need off of us so that they can be supported and know that they're cared for. And I think just knowing that you're in a community of people that have these experiences, know how to work with the plants, understand their importance, and can receive you just as you are is, I think, one of the most beautiful things that have come from Blue Morpho.
What have you witnessed in the ways of transformation over people that you've had the privilege to work with over the years?
One of the beauties of this is how consistent it is. And so, over 95, 98% of people who participate gain massive improvements in their lives. Whether it's mental health, they go from feeling a certain way to being freed from those symptoms, like depressed symptoms or anxiety or still carrying trauma, to a path of personal growth and development that is both spiritual but also life skill oriented, where people's lives as they engage in our programs consistently improve. Just you ask them in our community, like from the time you started until now, what's improved in your life? And they're going to say every category of their life, which is, I know it's a big statement to say that, but it happens. Like the whole point of this is the truthful results of just applying what we're learning to our lives and watching our lives, dramatically improve from that. There's the healing side and the life improvement side, and then the personal development. And people find their path. They straighten out their relationships with their friends, family, loved ones, husbands, and children, and wives and partners. They find the career path that they're looking for. They embrace the nature around how we treat finances in the community, so people have better financial lives in existence, learn how to become better aware of their own spending habits, just like life skills about how to address and guide each other in this process of just being alive in today's day and age. And this personal empowerment piece where people start to do things they were too scared to do before, or they make changes in their life that they just couldn't make. Some those are career changes. Some of those are in and around personal relationships. Some of those are around parenting techniques. But they do that. Like they feel empowered to be able to express themselves and the knowledge and awareness that they're gaining. And they just feel better being themselves. And it comes from the heart. It comes from their spirit. And there's this beautiful blossoming that somebody goes through when they take their spirit into their own hands and start to cultivate it. Like we are spirited beings. And so when somebody feels their own spirit come online and come alive, they're empowered by their spirit to apply themselves in their lives. So those are the benefits that we see just consistently over the last 2 decades. And it's one of the reasons that I wanted to continue, despite the difficulties in the space, just to continue to support people. I've always found these plants to be the most powerful tools of personal transformation available.
Beautiful. And so from this, just what I wanted to say. This is not just for someone that will be interested in sitting or facilitating ceremonies for someone else, but for someone who actually wants to be able to just go on their own journey and to understand deeper practices for themselves and to really kind of democratize and have that experience of plants in their own life.
It actually starts with everybody having first the experience with themselves. You can't guide people and understand what they're going through if you haven't had the experiences. So the course actually starts, and the way that it works is that you learn to sit for yourself. So the idea is first a powerful home practice, your own personal practice, and then from there, going through the experiential learning that cultivates the skills to be able to hold space for somebody else. One of the things that we're seeing in psychedelic assisted therapy, and I consult for psychiatrists and other people that are in both the ketamine space and psychedelic assisted therapy space now, is that they're not getting the results that they want. And one of the reasons for that is that they themselves have not had enough experience to know how to really intuit what's going on with somebody. This is transcendent of giving somebody a psychiatric drug and just watching it work or not work. This is a deeply personal, intimate, guided experience that has been cultivated over thousands of years in lineage. And you mentioned it yourself, that through your own coaching experience and the empathy that you've developed and your own awarenesses combined with the plants is what becomes so important and transformational for others. And so this starts as a home practice. This is about your own personal empowerment, your own health and well-being, your own capacities, and then ultimately being that person for your friends and family, and ultimately, if you desire, professionally.
And for people that are listening to this and they're feeling this allurement, I also want to point out that, in case they aren't aware, that you have the Blue Morpho Lodge as well, where there is the ability to come and see you in person.
Yeah, as people who take our courses, we have a number of benefits in coming to the lodge. I built a beautiful lodge in the Amazon. That is our core campus for our students. We also hold retreats that people come from all over the world to experience plant medicines with us. We hold ayahuasca ceremonies and San Pedro ceremonies there, and plant medicine dietas, which are these deep rites of passage, purification experiences that people go through in their process of learning. And so we have student discounts to be able to come down to the lodge, experience the retreats with us, as well as dieta, and also have the opportunity for more experiential learning. In fact, just last month, we had an incredible training where people in our level 2 program and level 1 were down at the lodge with us. We went through the level 1 training during the day and practiced the plant medicine together at night. And it was an opportunity for everybody to not only ask questions and learn more, but be together and share their arts with each other. And they just turned into beautiful ceremonies. And it's just a joy. It's just such a beautiful experience to be a part of.
For people that want to find out more, what's the best next steps?
The best next steps to find out more is to, contact us. You can write us at info@bluemorphotours.com, and we'll give you all the information to put in your show notes so that they can, come to a specially designed website just for you for an incredible offer we want to extend to anybody who's interested in the course. There's about 5 or 6 key bonuses that we would like to share with you, including mentorship, access to microdosing protocol, lifetime access to the course material itself, a ceremonial archive to support you in your development, and a massive discount. And we just want to extend that gratitude to you, Sabri, and your community for always being there for us. And so we want to just continue to be there for everybody who's interested in the plants and wants to have this kind of knowledge and ability in their own life.
Amazing. Yeah, I'll make sure we get those links below so people can find it. Is there anything else that you feel called to share? Anything that we've maybe not touched on that you'd like to?
Just as a closing message, I want you to know how important you are. Not in some egoic way, but just in a deeply soulful, spiritual way. That in today's day and age, we get compared to everybody else, and it's all about materialism. But from the plant medicine ceremonies, the way we know you is in your spirit, which is so much more than just what we accumulate during this life. And some of us suffer feeling unseen, and in our deep vulnerability wonder, these bigger questions. And I just want you to know that there's a lot of support for you in this world. You just have to say yes to it. And the opportunity to grow in our spirit is something that goes with us forever. And so I just want to share that you're deeply meaningful to something greater than just materialism, and to know that in a personal way.
Amen. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, brother. Such a delight to do another one of these together, to share this for people that feel the calling, to come and get involved. And I know that you and I would. It's almost 3 years now since our first episode, and the relationship's just deepened and deepened, and it just feels like it's going to continue to do so. And how we support each other, and also I think how we will cross over our communities and the people that we serve, and the way that we can be of service to each other's communities as well. And it's really been an honor. It's really been an honor, and one of the delights of me saying yes to me feeling spirit call. Me 3 years ago, it was actually November 3 years ago, where it was stop everything you're doing and enter into this space. And I said yes, and you were one of the people that I connected with early on, and it really has been an honor to deepen and deepen. And I look forward to more to come, and how I can continue to serve, and to see how you serve. It is an honor to take part.
Thank you so much, Sabri. I feel exactly the same way. And I look forward to all the amazing things we're going to get to do together in this life. And it's an honor to be on your podcast.
Thank you, brother.